welcome to the Mindful Mixer podcast. This is Francesco Portoso.
And I'm Janina Loureiro. We're part of the organizing team behind Mindful Mixer, a project that started in Luxembourg and brings people together for in-person events to explore meaningful topics that shape our lives, yet often go unspoken in everyday conversations.
We believe that making time to reflect can lead to greater self-awareness and understanding, and ultimately to personal and collective growth.
This podcast carries the spirit of Mindful Mixer beyond the events, offering thought-provoking discussions for anyone seeking reflection and fresh perspectives.
So, join us as we explore ideas that matter, challenge assumptions, and open space for deeper, more mindful conversations. Hello, and welcome to this episode of the Mindful Mixer podcast.
Yes, welcome.
Today we are speaking about given versus chosen. What does it mean, Janina?
Yes, so this was the topic of our last event, and the idea was to debate a bit on how things that we choose and that we were given, how they intertwine in shaping who we are. So things that we were given, they can be, for example, our name, our nationality, or our health status, whether we have any disabilities or not, and then our chosen paths, which is more like a personality, behavior, even physical traits that we might intentionally change. So the idea was to create some healthy, mind-filled discussion about these topics.
Okay, and why did we pick this topic?
First, I think we were really passionate about this topic, but also we had this consideration from studies that we've read and ideas that in general that we have seen in our life paths, that actually our people judge us instantly by the way we look, by where we come from. That's like a given. Society will make first impression bias, and so we wanted to generate some debate on this and make people think, are you the way you are because people have judged you in this way and you internalized it, or actually it's the opposite, people have judged you in a certain way and you made everything possible to change this.
And we went through some studies at the beginning that were showing how we evolved with this instinct to quickly create judgments about the people we meet based maybe on the physical appearance, and how this can often in our current society not really match the reality, right?
Yes, but we didn't want to only stay in the more negative side of things. And so we actually started the event by doing an interactive survey with the participants. And one of the questions was exactly the opposite. Like, what is one thing that their future selves might thank their current selves, their current circumstances or biologies for? So what is one thing that they really appreciate about that they have been given in life?
I think this could be an interesting question also for the audience. So try to think about it. We can share some of the results. A lot of people mentioned health as it's actually the most shared keyword, as something they are grateful for about their given traits. The second one,
because in the end that comes from genetics too.
Yes,
very strongly.
Yeah. Actually, I was listening to a podcast about lifespan and health span, and how you can do something to improve both, where lifespan is how long you can live, and health span is the quality of your life while you are aging, not just like how long you live, but how well you age.
Live, yeah.
And they were saying that you can do something for sure, but basically based on your DNA, people start at a different level.
Yeah, so the baseline is not the same.
Yeah, so a person that has a certain, let's say, better, in this context, DNA, might live until 120 years if he or she does certain things, but maybe you can live only up to 100 years if you do the same things. So it's still useful to do this, to take these actions, but it's not realistic to expect the same behavior. So,
exactly, from everyone.
Then we had a very mentioned keywords was also resilience, curiosity, and intelligence, but also empathy and flexibility. These were the most common answer to this question. But getting back to these two big categories, these big buckets of given versus chosen, another question we had was whether we feel that most of us is shaped by given traits or by traits that we chose intentionally, and what was the outcome?
Yeah, actually, we had quite a big contrast between how much people thought their control over what they choose impacted their lives, whether it was in the past or for their current selves. So for the past, we had three main groups of opinion. In the very extreme, we had people that didn't think that they had any choice over how their life shaped up to be. Then we have the middle ground, some people that were like, they had some control, but not fully. And then we also had the other extreme, which was people believing that they had a lot of control over what they chose.
Sounds like basically we had people representing the whole spectrum.
Yeah, indeed.
But not really like in a uniformed way.
Yes.
We had like peaks like in the middle at one side and the opposite side.
And this is where it contrasts with the how we see the future selves, because there was a lot more uniformity. The curve went way more towards people being able to control how they see the person that they want to become. And so this kind of hints a bit more about understanding where they lie in this spectrum of chosen versus given and making intentional actions and decisions about it.
Now, I would see this as a positive thing, that people somehow, they see the future as something they have more control of, and they can potentially take some actions to shape the person they want to become.
Exactly.
Here, what comes to my mind is this concept of free will that maybe someone heard already about, and actually specifically the lack of free will, the lack of existence of free will. If you never heard about this concept, it could sound a bit controversial, because we all feel that whatever we do, we choose to do it. But basically this argument expressed the fact that we cannot really be fully in control of our choices, because we don't control a lot of the factors that took us to take these choices, starting from our DNA, which we obviously don't control, but also the way we were educated, the way our mental patterns bring us to think about something rather than something else.
Even in environment, I had this realization during the event that, I was saying, okay, I was this person, and then, through different choices that I made, I came into a different environment, and that made me also make other choices. And so someone sent this question back to me. So was it you that made the choice, or was it the environment, the different environment that you are in? And yeah, my mind broke.
Yeah, there is an example that it's mentioned often by Sam Harris, who is a popular writer and philosopher, neuroscientist that wrote a book about free will that I highly recommend. He has this example, like, if I ask you to think about a movie, the first movie that comes to your mind, I don't know, what is it? You can mention a movie.
Coco from Pixar.
Yeah, and then you will like, I can ask you, okay, what is another movie?
American Beauty.
Okay, and then now if I ask you, why did you choose these movies in this order? And then if you start thinking about it, you will realize that, it's really difficult to be able to say that you are fully mastering the reasons why you choose things.
Yes, indeed.
But so the reason why we are mentioning this is because if you look at this topic of given versus chosen through this lens, it's actually difficult to find a difference, because even the traits, the choices we believe we choose are eventually results of factors that we don't really influence, or at least we don't influence many of them. We had this conversation, and it was interesting to be aware of this aspect. But moving forward, we thought about asking how maybe some of these traits that we don't choose, these given traits, can be considered as advantages or disadvantages in our current society, in life. If maybe during our lives, some specific trait passed from being a disadvantage to an advantage, or vice versa. Did you have any example of this in your conversation?
Actually, this is the complexity of the topic, because it's all about perspective, right? And so we had this example of someone that only really kind of questioned his appearance when he changed companies, and he realized that he was the only one in that company with a different skin color. And so this became a wider reflection about whether skin color has become an advantage or a disadvantage, and it's really a perspective of where you live, like where something can be considered an advantage or a disadvantage. So it's really quite complex. How is it for you?
That's an interesting concept of how you can become aware of a specific trait that before was not so relevant. In my group, we had an example about how coming from a specific country where maybe there were not a lot of resources available, shaped a person to be eager to seek things, to be very active, to be also competitive, and this brought both like advantages because when you understand that you have to fight for things, you take action. It's motivating, right, for you to seek what you would like to get.
Understanding that you are in control of outcomes. Yeah.
At the same time, maybe if you apply this behavior, these patterns to every single situation, it can create disadvantages because maybe it can make you feel unnecessarily competitive for trivial things or situations where this specific trait is not really useful.
Yeah, like I think like we were discussing earlier about scarcity mindset, how it can be, for example, with money, if you're always scared that you won't have enough, you might actually not live as a fulfilled life as you want for yourself. So it really has both positives and negatives.
Yeah, and this specific example you're mentioning about money, I think if you never think you have enough, you will just like try to get more for the sake of getting more.
Yes, it's a self-fulfilling prophecy.
Yeah, but not for the sake of like translating that in a better quality of life. So you just want more without actually improving your life. And I think this is something we see often in society happening. There was another example that I think it's quite useful to see how the same trait can be positive or negative. And it was just, the fact of being good looking in our current society. It's normally considered a very useful trait and possibly not really fair because it's something that comes from our genetics, exactly.
And you said current society, but I think that this has been the case for most of history.
Absolutely.
There is even a concept of this halo effect, that it means that people will be more favorable towards you, whether that means they will be more kind or more attentive or just take you for a more intelligent person if you are attractive, which plays a huge role in, any kind of opportunities that we get in society.
Right. Yeah. And there was an example shared, and maybe this is more related to the female side of the sexes, how, like a good-looking girl could how this could be a positive in her life in certain aspects. Specifically, there was an example about how it was easier to get positive grades at school, but how maybe this became later on in life during career something negative, because then people could think that she would get to certain career stages only because of her appearance.
Yes, I think that's the part that gets us thinking in this topic, is that there is a lot of things that shape the person we become. Because I think here, if I remember correctly, then this person also adapted to what they experienced, right?
Yeah, the idea is that obviously this was something that was not making her feel well, and she didn't want other people to think like that. So to try to minimize this effect, she started wearing, clothes that were maybe not so girly, let's say. They were more like, large clothes, very sporty, to avoid that people would use this as an argument.
But there's really quite a few things that can shape our sense of identity, and this is one of the questions that we dove deeper on. Like, what are the things that we didn't choose, like name, appearance, upbringing, nationality, that shaped our sense of identity, and how they have done so?
I think one of the best example was about how a person was really feeling in control of certain choices in her life, specifically the fact that she chose a certain path for her studies, which was architecture, and how she really felt like that was part of her identity. And she chose that, but then realized that this was actually the same area of expertise of her father that she didn't have a chance to know.
That's insane. So someone that she has never met, it kind of reflected in her what she thought were her own individual choices, right?
Exactly. And it was not just about the expertise, being an architect, but even like the type of architecture, the style of the buildings. It was really something that was overlapping with the specific
the
taste.
Identity of the dad. Yeah.
So this made a complete shift of perspective happening, because something that was considered 100% chosen became not necessarily 100% given, because one person cannot be completely sure that it
came from.
But for sure, like questioning where this traits feature of the person came from.
Now coming back to what you're saying, like the questioning is really something that we have to do a lot during our lives. And this questioning of what are we choosing, and do we want to choose something else to become something else? And that's also something that we delved in. If we ever felt defined or limited by something that we didn't choose, but later challenged or changed that, the way we saw that, and how that process was.
So this is a question on how we became aware that we received certain traits that we didn't choose, and if we were able, if we did something to challenge this and change this.
Yes, I would say especially if we have a negative view about it, because I mean that's a constant, right? You hear people saying, yeah, I'm like this, but it's because I have this that I was given and I have no choice over it. So you have two pathways there. You can accept, or you can just reject that part of yourself. And acceptance is a very long process, but I'm wondering, like, did you have any kind of examples on this area?
Yeah, we had a couple examples. First one comes to my mind was related to a person that had a specific physical trait that it's not normally considered as something positive from society. This was with this person for the whole life, and eventually, with the time, it turned out to be something that shaped the character of this person to
become more resilient. I guess.
More resilient. I would say, like, having a stronger, more assertive character that became actually useful in many situations in life, because we know it's a useful trait to be assertive, to speak up, to be able to not be afraid of sharing what one think. So this was an example, let's say, from something negative that became positive. But we also had the opposite example, where, for instance, being like a white and being a man at the same time, it's obviously recognized to be like a big advantage in nowadays society. But in the past few years, there was a lot of discussion about this topic, and how certain people, let's say, highlighted this idea that people should feel guilty of being in this, let's say, privileged bucket.
I think what you mean here is how this genetic luck can definitely influence so much positively your life that you might feel guilty for it.
Yeah, and it can come from personal reflection, or it can come also from society. Or I know that sometimes certain companies introduce some policies where maybe not necessarily the most competent person would be picked because of certain other criteria or quotas had to be respected. So it's it's a very sensitive but also difficult topic. It's a complex topic because there are so many important factors in.
Actually, it reminds me of something I saw on social media, which is we've always had war going on, and usually you see pictures of war, and then I remember seeing this one that said, the only difference between them and you is geographical luck. And yes, that made me feel guilty, because it's so true in the way that I only get to be myself and evolve and build a life because I grew up where I grew up and I had the opportunities that I had. But this geographical perspective was also something that you went a bit more into, right?
Yeah. In my case, being originally from Italy. Many of us are familiar with Italian stereotypes, with football, food, or even like being obsessed by women. And I remember that growing up, this was something that I felt that was part of my identity in a way that I didn't choose, but I didn't realize this until when I started maybe to travel and meet people from international environments where I noticed that there were different realities. This was not the standard for everybody. And then I started asking myself which of these traits made sense for me to keep because I found value, or which one I wanted to drop. This can be positive and negative according to situations, because while on one hand I feel more, let's say, owning my identity, I also happen to be in situations where maybe I meet a person and I say I'm Italian, and then I'm being instantly
categorized.
Yeah, asked about which football team I support. And then when I say I don't support any football team, this maybe disappoints a bit the person that had good intention and
to create a bond.
Yeah, wanted just to find a common trait to bond, and so it's always a bit more complex than how we think.
Yeah, but actually, you're touching on a point that was, I think, our main call to actions from this, which was the tools or practices that we use to reshape the parts of ourselves that we felt are inherited, right? So I'm sure many of us have things that we do not appreciate that we've inherited. How do we reshape this? And a lot of it had to do with awareness first, noticing where do these come from and what we can do about it.
Yeah, I think it's important to highlight the fact that it's a difficult process to get rid or change some of these given traits, because again, the first step must be awareness, because until we get awareness, we just don't know that maybe there is something that shapes our identity in such a strong way that could also impact it in a negative way. And I think there is often this common example of these two fishes that are in the water, and they don't know that they are in water because that's the default for them.
Oh,
I don't know if you heard about it. Now I don't remember the exact example, the exact example, but just like if you think about it, for fishes, water it's not a thing because they live in it. And only maybe when one of the fish jump out of water, they realize
there is another world.
Yeah. So it's a difficult process. Awareness, as you said, is the first step for sure.
But how do you get awareness?
Yeah, exactly. And for different people, it can work in different ways. There was an example during the event where like a person mentioned that she felt limited from the environment where she was growing up. But then just a simple quote from a professor at university made her completely change her perspective. And it was something like, okay, get things done no matter what. And just this resonated so much with her that, she started to stop, let's say, complaining about her situation and take action whenever she was not happy with something. So it's not about, the quote itself, but it's about how a message can become very powerful according to who you are and who is mentioning.
Who is speaking to you. Yeah, that's what I was going to say, because I think this quote as it is might not motivate others, but it's the precise combination of who this person was, how they grew up, how they were shaped, and what this other person represented to them that made that impact on her.
Right. There were also examples about how therapy helped. That's something that I'm very happy that people
they consistently bring up this in our in events.
People talk more and more about this. I think the stigma around therapy is fading finally.
Thankfully.
About mental health. And mindfulness was shared. Typically, some people mentioned meditation. That's something that I also personally talked about. I can share that I like a lot the fact that the awareness that you get by practicing this often helps to become aware earlier rather than later about the motives that really drive your actions or thoughts. Maybe your default thought or default action is something that is not really aligned with the person you want to be, because it's, again, a result of inherited patterns. Yeah, just by becoming more aware of what's going through your mind can help you to interrupt this pattern and take the action you really would like to take.
Yes, I think here I find it curious that when you mention mindfulness, for me, the first thought is meditation. And for me, it's the exact same thing. I just call it a different thing. For me, it's emotional awareness built through therapy. And it's the exact same that you described, being aware of the motives that drive our actions and our thoughts and rewriting that narrative, right?
Yeah. What is important here, I really believe it's the awareness. And
Indeed.
And you can get there by different practices. One of these can be meditation. The other can be, even just by reading a book, having a talk, watching a speech.
And actually, one of the things that people mentioned also in the event was that to be able to grow in such a way, we also need people around us who will be honest and give us realistic, constructive feedback.
Yeah.
And that's not always the case.
Yeah, what often we hear about is that feedback is a gift, and it's also a gift to be able to receive the feedback and seek for feedback. To improve, we need a feedback system. We need a way to understand that...
it sounds very corporate here, but actually the idea is there is a good intention behind it, yes.
If you just start from the concept that as humans we are not perfect, that means that we need to improve, and we need a error correction system and getting feedback from others or from ourselves. But in this case, we're talking about others. It's a key. It's critical.
I think what you're saying is that we can only grow by growing collectively.
Yeah.
As a community.
Yeah. Great. We always like to end the session with a call to action. What is something we can share this time, Janina?
Yes, I think this time we would leave you with the question, what is one given or long-held belief about yourself that you want to challenge or redefine going forward? We talked about a lot of things in this Mindful Mixer episode. We hope they gave you a lot of food for thought, especially concerning this question, and that you will take constructive feedback for yourself moving forward.
Yes, thank you for your attention, and see you in the next episode.
See you in the next one. And that's a wrap on this episode of Mindful Mixer. Thanks so much for tuning in.
If you enjoyed the conversation, you can support the project by sharing it with a friend who might find it interesting, and you can follow us on social media for updates on new episodes and events.
Mindful Mixer is on Instagram, Facebook, and LinkedIn. But the best way to stay up to date with our events is to subscribe to our mailing list. Just check the links in the show notes.
There, you'll also find any references to materials we might have mentioned during the session. Thanks for listening. Stay tuned for the next episode.